Hi. This is version 1.0. It came out in November of 2011. The process to beat the game looks like this. Spawn, tree, mine, obsidian, portal, blaze, pearls, eyes, stronghold, portal, dragon, credits. That's it. This is version 1.21. It came out in June of 2024. The process to beat the game looks like this. Spawn, tree, mine, obsidian, portal, blaze, pearls, eyes, stronghold, portal, dragon, credits. And elytra, but only if you want to. You've heard this all before, I'm sure. There's tons of videos made over years and years just identifying this problem. The progression of this game needs to be deeper, or change entirely, or blah blah blah, proper name, place name, backstory stuff, whatever, nothing has been done. I guess I should define what I mean by deeper. I don't mean physically deeper, they just did that. I mean longer progression. It's like you're climbing up this long chain of progression, one link at a time. It has distinct stages of growth for the player, and it's satisfying to progress through. Depth gives you something to strive for in the future, and a reason to keep playing. The Ender Dragon chain is the longest in the game, and even then it only takes like 2 hours from start to finish. Some insane people can do it in about 7 minutes. Once you beat the dragon, there's nothing else built into the game to progress towards. A lot of players choose to start creating their own goals at this point, but many decide to just quit directly after the dragon. This was the state in 1.0 and still is to this day. Why haven't they done anything? Is the Mojang team just stupid and can't make a game as good as Marcus QAnon Pushon, or is there something else coming into play? Yes, his name is actually pronounced Pushon, I'm pretty sure. That's what they said in some interview, okay, I'm taking that as fact.
Lord of Autism.
Well, if we want Minecraft's progression to be longer, we could just add more stuff between the start and end. Have a copper tier between stone and iron. Make gold tools actually have a playing role in the game. Add a tier above diamond that's the only one that can mine obsidian. Make a new item that's needed to light the end portal. Give us more stuff to do in the end before the dragon fight, etc, etc. Let's keep the start and end the same and just pack more into the middle. This is essentially what mods like Terraformacraft do. You're still mining and crafting, but you have to actually forge hematite into a bar of iron to get a pickaxe now. Terraformacraft is definitely way too far for progression to go for me, but it shows that there's room to cram more into the existing progression. This is tempting, and it works pretty well as a mod, but actually adding it to the base game is a whole other story. Because think about it, anyone who updates in the middle of the progression would be pretty confused after they update. If a player can mine a block one day, and then the next day they can't do it, it would seem like the game glitched out or something. This would also mean that anyone who's already through the progression would experience no change at all, unless they restart their world from scratch. Well, if we can't put stuff in the middle, maybe we can add stuff after. When Notch was making this game back in 2011, it's clear from this documentary that he felt pretty uncomfortable with all this attention on him. He wanted to work on literally anything else so bad that he decided to end the game entirely. He needed this ending to symbolize to himself and the community that the game was now finished and didn't need him anymore. So he started adding subtle clues that this new update was an actual ending. He added Ender Eyes, the End Portal, the End Island, End Stone, Ender Dragon, Obsidian End, Chicken to Enders, like and subscribe. This is the genius of Notch that the Mojang team hasn't tapped into yet. The ending of the game was now set in stone because he decided to set the word end into the name of the stone, so they'd probably have to change the name of the end if they wanted to add anything past it, which, as we all know, always goes over super well. To be honest, I would be fine with more progression after the end while keeping the name the same. It really wouldn't bother me that much. But Minecraft really prides itself on its intuitiveness, and a place called The End that's not the actual end of the game is not really intuitive for new players, is it? So this decision from Marcus Transphobia Pushon effectively locked Minecraft's depth for the next 13 years. Longer than a lot of you have been alive, fun fact. But it was all worth it, because now he could go do other things. Like Attend to the Sea, and Cliff Horse, and Levers and Chests, and that's it. And that's all of them. There's nothing else.
Yeah, I kind of burnt out for it.
The decision to keep making the game wider starts to make sense now. That's all the devs really can do. They keep adding side quests, but they don't really get you anything as good as going to the end. Like, I can live without beacons and the mace, I can't live without elytra and shulker boxes. I think that naming it The End was the worst decision that Notch ever made. Okay, one of the worst decisions he had ever. It really screwed the game over in the long run, and it feels like a selfish move to fuck over his own game just so he could stop working on it. I don't really know how they would solve this problem, but for this video, let's just assume that they have somehow gotten around this issue. Then what? This would mean that after killing the dragon, you now have access to a new adventure. The dragon somehow unlocks something that you didn't have access to before. How would you actually implement that? A lot of progression systems in other games rely on breaking the fourth wall to stop you from going too fast. However, Minecraft really tries to never ever speak directly to the player, except in the credits, I guess. It doesn't have any in-game pop-ups telling you can't go here or there. That goes against the vibe, man. Hear me out. Have you ever heard of this little game called Hypixel Skyblock? I played it for an embarrassingly long time for a game that isn't playable anywhere else but this one server. I don't usually get into stuff like factions or prison servers, but this one was really well done. Or maybe it was just summer of 2020 and there was nothing better to do. I'm not sure. The amazing thing is that some people have been playing Hypixel Skyblock since it was released back in 2019, making my amount of hours slightly less embarrassing. I think this longevity is because of its super long progression chain. There are so many things to do in Hypixel Skyblock, it's kinda overwhelming for me. However, one thing that Skyblock does to enforce this depth is lock certain parts away until the game deems you ready. For example, I bought this sword that's actually useless right now because I'm not a high enough combat level to use it. This is very common in the realm of massive multiplayer online role-playing games, but I don't think that this is what most people would want for vanilla. Another game that does this is Terraria. While being just physically deeper than Minecraft, it also has a lot more game depth as well. The entire hard mode section of the game is locked away until you kill the Wall of Flesh. After that, new resources, structures, and monsters spawn into the world forever. The Wall of Flesh drops the Pwn Hammer. Yes, that's its actual name. It was added in 2011, okay? It was before your time. And it's very important because it's the only way to access the new hard mode content. Half of the game is completely inaccessible until you kill this boss. So inaccessible that new things literally generate into the world after you beat the Wall of Flesh. New things don't generate in existing chunks in Minecraft, and it seems like something that could only work in a finite world like Terraria's. So if you want an example of an infinite world with better progression, I think that the Twilight Forest mod would be a good example of that. Each of the bosses has their own arena with special loot, enemies, and trophies, all of that in an infinitely generating world. However, the Twilight Forest will often just physically block you from entering a dungeon if you aren't ready, either by making the dungeon entirely out of unbreakable blocks, or, warning, flashing lights for the next 10 seconds. Okay, you ready? Or you can stop a player from entering by giving them a seizure before they even get there. Minecraft will do anything to avoid the feeling like the game is reaching out from behind the computer and preventing you from doing something. The only thing that stops you from going to the end is you. The game doesn't ever have a pop-up that says, oops, you can't go there yet, you need to be combat level 7 first. That's the vibe of being able to do anything you want at any time. You want to kill the Ender Dragon in 7 minutes? Do it. You want to go kill the Wither before the dragon? Sure. You want to never go to the end at all? That's all good. When you add progression that only becomes accessible later, you have to lock it away from the player. But Minecraft doesn't want to do that because that would make the game more rigid and less immersive. These are the core design principles of the game, so they can't really just, ignore them. But obviously, the game didn't always have the progression it does right now, so why don't they just do what they did before and... This is the obvious suggestion for making the game deeper, so obvious that typing dimension into the Minecraft feedback site gives you hundreds of suggestions. Just, add another dimension after the end with a new epic boss mob. I mean, Jens has said explicitly that another boss is highly likely, so...
Will there ever be a new mob with a boss bar added to Minecraft?
Yes, I would say that's highly likely. Again, I don't know when.
So most of your answers are maybe and sometime.
Yes.
But there's a reason for it. A new dimension is such a common suggestion because that's the way that the current game handles progression. The overworld defines the early game, the nether defines the mid-game, and the end defines... You could guess. Maybe you need the dragon egg to open a new portal, or maybe a portal could be hidden in the Outer End Islands. They just added a new dimension for April Fool's this year. It was such a low effort process that they could afford to do it as a joke. 3 times! It's almost like they added 2 billion dimensions as a joke about how many dimension suggestions they get. I don't know though, maybe that's just a theory. Okay! MatPat, please hire me for game theorists. I can say the game theory very well. Even though it'd be cool to have a new dimension, I think they haven't added one yet because the current ones aren't even close to being complete in the eyes of the Mojang team, even with the Nether update and some theoretical End update. Let's compare the features of the overworld with the Nether and End combined, just in terms of numbers. The Nether and the End have 4 structures. The overworld has over 20, 10 biomes compared to over 50, 2 unique ores compared to 7, 12 mobs compared to over 60. Quality over quantity, of course, and the overworld definitely has its fair share of quantity mobs, but seriously, you can feel that the Nether and End are severely lacking compared to the overworld. So why would they add another dimension when the ones we have aren't even finished yet? I'm not saying that the other two dimensions should be as detailed as the overworld, but the fact that combined they have 1/5 the amount of content in every department is kind of crazy.
Objection!
But Dim, what about the big gigantic portal in the deep dark? That's definitely going to be a portal to some dimension in the future, right? Yes, this thing obviously does look like a portal, and one of the smaller structures that looks like it used to be called small_portal_statue, but no, I don't think we have any reason to believe that this portal will be openable anytime soon, if ever. I think it's more likely to be the lore reason why the sculk is in the overworld. I think you can hear it on the 5 music disc. I'm less sure about that after listening to it properly, but that's what MatPat said, so that means it's definitely true. Basically, adding another dimension is not a thing that Mojang needs on their big, gigantic plate of things to fix. At least not right now. I know the second that I post this, they're gonna announce a new dimension just to fuck with me. If I'm wrong, make sure to come back to this video and comment, this aged like a fine glass of milk. R/aged like milk, am I right, gamers? PogChamp, LOL, LMFAO. I will love that comment. So if Mojang doesn't want to physically block the player, doesn't want to add a new dimension, but still wants to add some depth, what should they do? What if they added some kind of place with an enemy that's almost impossible to beat without a certain item? This is what the Aether mod does with the, Silver Dungeon. The angels will completely destroy you if you don't have the lance from the labyrinth. With the extra reach distance it offers you, the fight gets way easier. Terraria does a similar thing with the, Dungeon? It's also called the Dungeon? Did Notch make these names or something?
Are there any other Squidwards I should know about? Meow.
The Dungeon Guardian will insta-kill you if you try to enter the dungeon before you beat Skeletron, and afterwards it doesn't appear anymore. The problem with these suggestions is that it implies that you have to kill the player and give them all of their stuff back. You want this to just be a deterrent, not some kind of go here to lose all of your items forever dungeon. If a new player stumbles across it and loses everything because they didn't know better, that would probably be pretty frustrating. Terraria has keep inventory on by default, and the Silver Dungeon Angels don't attack you unless you attack them. This is the only spot where I could possibly see a good solution. I'm thinking of a combination of the Silver Dungeon and the Trial Chambers. The End has some useful weapon that's basically required to get through the new dungeon. The mobs in that dungeon don't attack you unless you start breaking blocks or attacking them. The only way to get loot out of the dungeon is from Trial Vaults, and you get the keys by killing the mobs inside. You can just barely get through if you're Joe Speedrun, but Joe Generic's gonna have a really hard time getting through without this weapon. A couple skeletons I'm gonna sweep under the closet, or how this would work in multiplayer, or what loot would be good enough to warrant visiting this place, or what this enemy would look like, or what anything will look like, or how to inform the player of the structure's existence. Meow, 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 meow. Just make it, okay? Just press the magical game development red button and add it to the game already. God damn. It's way easier said than done, and saying things is my only skill. If they don't add it, cool. It was probably a bad idea. If they do, I get all the credit. It's as shrimple as that. Cameron from MCIA, which stands for Minecraft International Airport by the way, described a concept in his video What's the Goal of Minecraft about intrinsic and extrinsic motivators. I don't like the names, but I do like the concept, so I'm going to rename them and use them in my own video to act like I came up with them myself. Anyways, there are two types of motivators in games, the main story and the side quests. The main story is the fastest way to get from the start to the end of the game. I sound like a fucking nerd just then, oh my god. Start to the end of the game? The main story is the fastest way to get from the start to the end of the game. It's the most action-packed way, but you also usually spend the least amount of time actually playing the game. The side quests go on alternate adventures that don't progress the main story forward, but they do help with world building and making the game longer. Basically, I'm the type of person when playing GTA 5 to only look for the missions with the big single letter, whereas someone else might be looking for all those question marks. One is not objectively better than the other, it just comes down to personal preference. But maybe we should consider a certain someone's personal preference.
What's the purpose of Minecraft? Honestly, that's up to you. We want Minecraft to feel open-ended, and you set your own goals and you decide what to do and what to build, and anything is okay.
So it's not surprising then that Minecraft as a whole leans way more on the side questing part of the spectrum. Minecraft is what you make it, but Minecraft is only what you make it. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad, it really just depends on the mood. Sometimes I want to be creative and go around and do what I want, other times I want to grind through a list of quests, it just depends. Asking for longer progression chains is good for the main quest people, but the side quest people definitely shouldn't be ignored. The ones that want to create their own story, their own way through the world are just as important. That's what this game is all about to some people, and making them have to trudge through progression that they don't give a shit about is not fun for them. So adding stuff only to the main quest would be of zero interest to the side questers, because it would be super far down the progression chain, which would be an entire group of people who don't give a shit about your update. You might be thinking that these are all just hurdles for Mojang to cross, right? All of this stuff, with enough time and effort, surely could be solved. There must be some way for them to add a new dimension to the game. Surely over time the game could change its perception to be a more main story oriented game. You've been watching this Minecraft video for 16 minutes now, you want the real reason? Okay, to get to it we have to zoom out and look at Minecraft not as a game, but as a product. Minecraft is essentially a live service game, like Fortnite or Overwatch or every other AAA game since 2016. One thing you'll notice about those games is they have some kind of constant revenue stream. Nowadays it's usually in the form of microtransactions, but it used to be that you would have to buy DLC, or in the Neolithic era you would have to actually pay a monthly subscription to be able to play the game. I'm looking at you, Wizard 101, fuckers. This is because if you want concept work to be put into improving the game, you have to constantly be putting money into supporting the developers, and most importantly, the billionaire. The difference with Minecraft is that it's a one-time purchase and a live service game. So you pay them once, and they update the game forever. Somehow. Even though a lot of people play Bug Rock and they buy the, mine coins? Did Notch name these things too? Even though there are people who supply a constant revenue stream, there's a huge portion of the player base that never has to buy anything. My parents got my Minecraft account back in 2013 for $26.95. I haven't paid for the game in 11 years. Why would Microsoft put money into giving me a longer progression? Keeping you playing is not Tykalof's main goal. It's to get new players to buy the game. The first time that I played the game was the only time that they made any money from me. Every subsequent time makes Daddy Bill Gates no money at all. It's like I'm stealing food directly out of his fat mouth. For shame. The unfortunate truth is that making the game wider, not deeper, is the best thing to do if you want more people to buy it. Making the game deeper wouldn't increase sales of the game because the casual players wouldn't get to experience it. Think about how many people you know that have never beaten the Ender Dragon before. All of those people would be instantly cut off from a post-end update. So really, the answer is that we haven't paid for a deeper ending. We paid for the dragon, and I think that's all we're gonna get, really. But why can't they just do the right thing? Why is money the only metric that matters? Why are quality or cultural impact not factors in a game that's supposed to be fun? Why is the product only good when it generates revenue, not whenever it works the best? Why don't they operate ethically, creating the best game they can just because that's the best thing to do, not because of a green piece of paper? Why isn't that the world that we live in? Well, I think you know why. Why don't we play a little bit of Complete the Phrase, you know? And just shout out if you know it. There is no ethical